On this episode of the Palm Beach Current, I'm joined by Jacob Noble, candidate for County Court Judge Group 12 here in Palm Beach County. On the latest edition of the Palm Beach Current, this is a special edition here for the election as we come up and get ready to vote this Tuesday. I'm joined by Jacob Noble, candidate County Court Judge Group 12 in Palm Beach County. I know a lot of us in this area have received in the mail a ballot with your name and your opponent's name. And I think, Jacob, a lot of people, we pay attention to the state reps, to the governors, all of the names that people see on TV. But I think it's easy to overlook the judge candidates. So we're happy to have you on the show this morning and hear a little bit about your background. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. And it's interesting you say that about the judicial race. It usually drops about, when they actually get to that part of the ballot, it drops down to 20%. So, it can drop as much as 20%, meaning people won't even vote for that position.
Right. Yeah, no. So I think this is fascinating for listeners to take a chance to listen to who you are and what you're all about. For people hearing you for the first time, tell us a little bit about yourself, Jacob.
Sure. My name is Jacob Noble. I've been an attorney now for over 20 years. I handle criminal and civil cases. I've handled over 50 jury trials. I've handled appellate cases. I've argued before the 4th DCA. I've been in Miami County, Broward County, Palm Beach County, St. Lucie County, Indian River County, Martin County, and Henry counties. I've been in Okeechobee County as well. I've been in all those courts handling all sorts of cases. And that's a lot about me. And I also do guardianship, landlord-tenant. I've done some bankruptcy. And I run my own practice. So that in addition to trying cases, I have to pay my bills. I have to pay for the overhead. I manage all of that. I am a one-man shop.
What inspired you to pursue a career in law?
You know what? I've always been passionate about the law, and I like the idea of finality. I was a history major, and I always thought, I don't want to say history was easy, but it's a lot easier than math, right? Or some other areas, because history's already happened, right? So, all you got to do is remember what happened and you can be all right. The law, there are rules. I like the structure. There was something about the structure. And I was just passionate. When I was a kid, I read Inherit the Wind about Clarence Darrow. So I was always into the law.
And what was that defining moment that made you want to become a judge like you're pursuing here next Tuesday?
That's simple. I look back at my experience and I said to myself, you know what? I could do this. I've tried so many cases. I know the law very well. My experience and the patience. And honestly, I took a look at my life and on reflection, I'm like, this is something that I can definitely do. I've always wanted to be a judge, but the opportunity never presented itself. I would never run against a sitting judge, not because I can't. There's something about that. There's too much of a stigma, and I'm very not political. I believe in a wholly independent judiciary, and the significance of that is I never applied to be a judge for either side, right? Because you're appointed by the governor, and I was always worried that somebody might say, "Oh, you're just ruling that way because he appointed you," even if it could be something as simple as a landlord-tenant. People start coming up with these theories about why a judge ruled or not. I wanted it to be totally independent. And part of that is, with that, I got the endorsement of the Police Benevolent Association, which I'm really proud of. Despite the fact that I did criminal defense, the Police Benevolent Association came out, respected my work, and said, yeah, this guy can be fair and impartial.
And look, I think it's something that we lose sight of in this day and age, right? People talk about the president getting elected, whether Democrat, Republican, and then are they going to be able to appoint anyone to the Supreme Court, right? And then just like you said, you get a political bias because, Bush put me on the Supreme Court, so the stigma is I owe them a favor, or Clinton put me on, or Obama put me on, or Trump. So I can appreciate what you're saying there, because I think that's what people want. They want to know that someone's going to be fair, and they want to know that someone's going to be impartial. You began your career as an assistant public defender. What lessons from that role still help guide you today, and how would that carry with you on the bench?
Let me start with this premise. I became the trial lawyer I am today because of the public defender's office. They helped me out so much. It was a team effort. They'd send us to classes. They were They were always helpful. They had the resources. I was able to do the research. They had the Westlaw and everything. I tried most of my cases, or at least a significant amount of that, when I was with them. And it really was. It's when I worked at the public defender's office, I learned how to do that trial work. Um, I also started seeing the politics of it all, which explains why my opponent has all the endorsements. I'm realizing that my opponent, she has most of the endorsements. Well, basically, when it comes to endorsements, I'm learning that it's all political, and I see that happen at the while I worked at the public defender's office. You see who would move up, who would move right, who would move left, um, and how certain people acted and networked, which was a big thing in the courthouse.
Well, yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point. I mean, when you run for this, people aren't looking at you as a Republican judge candidate or a Democrat judge candidate, right? They're looking at you as a impartial judge candidate. So it almost seems contradictory to get all of these endorsements by these people lobbying for you guys to try to get in, right? I mean, it should come down to your backgrounds and what you've done to this point. You talk about being an assistant public defender and getting in that part. How does private practice shape what you've seen, your perspective on the justice system?
It's so interesting you say that. First of all, once you become in private practice, and they don't teach you this in law school, you're more than just an attorney. You're also a businessman. And the joke is, attorneys are not very good at the business end of their jobs. The most challenging part of going into private practice is the business area. I take it for granted the fact when I was at the PD's office, right? If we would depose a witness, we have to issue subpoenas, right? Well, that was done by your secretary. Well, I'm a solo practitioner. I don't have a secretary, so I issue the subpoenas. I have to do the mailing. I think that's also what goes into my experience and my ability to do this job. Also in private practice, I've had to be in different courtrooms at the same time, sometimes in front of in different counties. And I learned how to manage that. And that's an experience that I bring to the table. I don't know if you've ever needed a lawyer or not, but lawyers charge an hourly rate. And sometimes you have to sit in court and do nothing while another case is called up and you're waiting there. But even though you're waiting there, the attorney's getting paid. And that's really not fair to the client. So again, that experience that comes in there, what that's changed in private practice and what I would bring to the table as a judge is this idea of we shouldn't charge, because time is money, you shouldn't charge people time that's spent doing nothing. So what I've learned most importantly is how, in addition at the PD's office where I learned to become a lawyer, also as a private attorney, learning how to balance people's budget for purposes of in court or in hourly rates.
Right. And what qualities do you believe separate a good attorney from a great judge?
The ability to objectively look at the case. And I've seen that on both sides. And I think that's what will make me a great judge. Sometimes when you're an attorney, you put your blinders on and you don't acknowledge or you don't want to recognize that there's certain facts or circumstances that are not boding well for you. Or you want to just almost act like the ostrich and stick your head in when the bad fact goes out. Um, a good, but actually great attorneys too, a great attorney is actually similar to a great judge because they know every angle of the case and know every which way it's going to come. It's almost like chess, right? Where you pick, where you anticipate your opponent's next move. Except here, you're anticipating the question that's going to be asked.
Right. No, I totally understand. And I think that's a really good way to look at it. When people walk into your courtroom, what could they expect from Judge Jacob Noble?
They're going to be treated with dignity and respect, and they're going to be heard. And most importantly, when they leave that courtroom, whether it comes for or against them, the decision, they're going to say, you know what, he made the right decision, and I really like the way he did it. Or they're going to leave and say, I really wish he had ruled it my way, but he wasn't mean. He listened to me. He gave out a well-reasoned and thought-out explanation. And here's the one part I'm going to give you guys something that hasn't been discussed at all by either my opponent or I in other interviews. It's for county court, it is the people's court. For a lot of people, it's their first time going into court, right? But when you go to the criminal side, if I'm assigned to the criminal side, it's oftentimes the attorney's first time in court, meaning these are new attorneys. And it was so long ago, and I had to remember it, what it was like to be a new attorney, trying my first case, my second case, my third case, getting in my reps, so to speak. And I remember there were some judges who were really nice and very helpful, and they, give you some good advice, and there'd be teaching. Then there were other judges who were just, couldn't be bothered and found your newness to the law an inconvenience to their court. So the Jacob Noble that the attorneys are going to see when elected judge is one who's very patient with the new lawyers.
Right. And how do you balance that compassion for people, whether it's the lawyers or the people that are being tried in court? How do you balance that compassion with the way that the law is written?
Just by doing that, explaining to someone why you're going to make the ruling. So not just saying the ruling is, it's going to be my ruling is, and here is why. It's hearing every case, every factor. It's making each person felt as though they were heard and understood, and weighing all of that, and not treating one case as every other case.
I want to move over a bit to the voter side of
Sure.
this. We said at the beginning of the interview, I think a lot of voters, your particular race isn't getting a lot of attention, and not just yours, but judicial races in general, because people don't really know the candidates. And with that, why should they pay attention, Jacob? I mean, you're running against one other person. What are they voting for?
That's a very good point. First reason is, you asked me earlier, why am I running for a judge? Why am I running for judge? I am running for judge because I want to be a county court judge. This is where I want to be. There are some people who look at the county court position as as a starting point, as opposed to a landing spot, right? I view the position as county court. If I became a county court judge and I did that for the rest of my career, I'd be just as content. I really don't have any desire to move up further. This is where I want to be. But there are some people who look at the county court, it's, oh, I just need to do this for X amount of years, then I can go on to that. It's this ambition, it's this idea of I have to get my foot in the door. And honestly, that's the one that you need to be careful. I'm just gonna be flat out blunt. If someone's going into this job with the idea of what's next, every decision they're gonna make is gonna be based on, well, if I do that, what's next? That's not how I'm going to do it. That's not how I view this job. I am looking at the job as county court judge for what it is, and I'm taking every case for what it is. And my decision's not going to be based on politics, endorsements, or anything like that. It's going to be based on the facts alone, and no other factor will contribute to that, including but not limited to whether this decision might impact a nomination or an endorsement or a potential lateral move or going somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, and I think it's refreshing as well, because so many people, whether politicians or in your case a judicial election, they are always looking to climb the ladder to the next thing, right? And so immediately people get their antennas up because they start to wonder, what is this person's intention? What are they trying to do? So I think to know that this is the job that you want, you have no aspirations to go anywhere else. I know as a voter, that would put me at ease to say, hey, here's somebody that just wants to go do a job, do this role, and do it better than anybody else. So thank you for explaining that. What exactly what does the Palm Beach County Court judge do, right? You mentioned if you went on the criminal side, what are the types of cases that are taking place? Because I think, for me, I've never been in any kind of trouble with the law before. I think a good number of people have not. We hear about getting summons for
Right.
jury duty, things of that nature. But what are the types of cases that are going on that you would be trying here?
So it's county court, and it's also known as the people's court. The reason why it's known as the people's court is it takes minor matters. And when I say minor matters, I don't mean to be dismissive or or, or belittle the point. Point is, because every time you're in court, it's something big to somebody. But these are matters that are $50,000 or less. They're landlord-tenant. They're misdemeanors, right? No more than a year in jail. These are it's by statute designed. It's for the small. They have small claims, and that's what county court judge does. So it's funny. Sometimes I'll get voters. They'll be like, "What's your stance on abortion or the death penalty?" None of that applies to county court. And again, I don't have to worry about answering those questions because, just to reiterate, my ambition is to be a county court judge and nothing else,
Excellent. And why did you think
or a
this was
career
the right
county court
time
judge.
to why was this the right time to run for the county court judge group 12 position?
Sure. The opportunity presented itself for this reason. One, there was a non-incumbent race. It's two people who are not judges, so the judge retired. Um, and it allows the people to have a choice, right? No one, I think, whether you're appointed by the governor or you're elected, you're either appointed by the governor, 6 people apply, 3 to 6 people, and the governor chooses one. If there's an election, people choose between 2 or more candidates, right? But if only one person puts in to be a judge and nobody runs against them, then neither one of those functions occurs. And they just walked in almost as an anointment. And I did not want any judge walking in there. You have to earn it. And when I saw who I was running against, I said, you know what? I looked at my experience and I said, you know what? I've earned this. I want this. Most importantly, I can do this job.
No, it's great. And so in terms of what challenges do you think the court system faces right now?
The biggest challenge and the one that I want to hammer down is the pay for judicial assistance needs to be raised. That's people talk about judicial efficiency and all that stuff. Yes, we need to make it more efficient. We need to make it better. We need to utilize Zoom more, so that people, time is money. They have to pay the hourly rate. If they have to take off from work, they're not getting paid to come to court. They're there for 3 hours, even though their hearing's only 2 minutes because there are 40 other cases. So efficiency is definitely important. I want people to appear by Zoom, but honestly, we need to raise the pay of the judicial assistants.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I think some people out there don't understand, if you were to win on Tuesday, regardless of who wins, how long is that appointment for until you have to run again?
It's a 6-year term, and I believe it starts on January 1st
Okay.
of
Okay, good to
2027.
know. Good to know. So that, I think that clears up some questions that voters might have. Jacob, typically at this point in the show, I have different questions or similar questions that I ask everyone. But I want to be careful here because you're running for political office, and I don't, or not political, but you're running for a judicial slot, and I don't want to
Right.
get you in trouble here with this. But I guess I'll ask you a few impartial questions. What's your favorite place in Palm Beach County? In the place, all the people that are voting, what's your favorite place to go? I mean, and it doesn't have to be a
That's
business
so
or a
tough.
restaurant. Realize that can get you in trouble, but it could be a
Oh,
beach, a park. What is it that you like to do here?
oh, that's easy. Jupiter Hammerheads, Roger Dean Stadium. Roger
Yeah,
Dean
I was
Stadium
there.
and playing pickleball. Those two.
I was there last night. Actually, it was. It's always a great place to
That's
go. It's got to
so
be
you was okay.
the
So you
one
were
of the
there
biggest hidden
Thursday.
gems.
I was there Wednesday. Yeah, and I can't believe they don't get as much as attendance. I mean, I'm assuming maybe you went to go see Jacob Lombard, the
Yeah,
new
he didn't.
Marlin,
He
the
actually
George
didn't.
Lombard
Yeah, he
brother.
didn't play last night. He didn't play last night, but it was
Well,
still a really good game. But yeah, there's a lot of really good talent on both of those teams. I speak of the
yes, there is.
Cardinals and the Hammerheads. But no, that's excellent. What is something that listeners would be surprised to learn about you?
I've adopted 2 Chihuahuas. I'm an adopted parent to 2 Chihuahuas, Teddy and Wendell.
Nice. So a potential judge here that is a Chihuahua lover. I love it. And I guess my last question
Yes.
for you, you know, our our show here, the Palm Beach Current, is all about people who shape the community. Beyond your resume, your campaign, what do you want listeners to remember most about Jacob Noble after this conversation?
That I've evolved, that the Jacob Noble of 20 years ago is not like there was anything bad or anything, but that I recognize through age comes experience and wisdom, and that one of the reasons why I'm running is because of that experience and my evolution. So, and more importantly, the recognition of the reflection on my end. I've the growth. That's what I want them to see and know, is that I am a person who continues to grow. I haven't stopped, and even on the bench, I'll continue to grow. It's a never ending thing.
Well, perfect. Well, listen, Jacob Noble, County Court Judge, Group 12, election in Palm Beach County on Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I've lost complete track of the number of Tuesday. I guess it's August 11th. Please go out and exercise your right to vote for either candidate. But Jacob, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us on the Palm Beach Current, bringing you the people, places, and stories shaping our community. If you enjoyed the show, follow, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves Palm Beach County. Until next time, stay connected, stay curious, and stay current.